Hey, everybody. Welcome to Mr. Campbell Rocks, where we talk about tech for teachers. I'm going to go through Google Meet in a ton of detail today, step-by-step tutorial how to install, what extensions you need to add to make the experience better for you and your students, your teachers, other people in your building. We're going to talk about some things that you need to be careful of as you're ending Google Meet meetings. We're going to talk about some of the ways to invite people to a meeting. We'll talk about email. We'll talk about text. We'll talk about Google Calendar, inviting members that way, and how to record the meeting, where to retrieve that once it is recorded. So we're going to go through everything Google Meet today. If you're new here and you've never used Google Meet, this is for you. If you're familiar with Google Meet and you're looking for maybe some few more tips or tricks, then stay with us. If you're an expert already, then you don't need this video. Go find something else. It's not that we don't want you, but I don't want to waste your time. My name is Spencer Campbell. I am a middle school administrator, former middle school and high school language arts teacher. And this presentation is in Google Slides, so I'll share that down in the description below when we're done, and you can share that with anybody else that you want. So let's jump through this. We've already done introductions here, so I'm just going to jump down and go through. So Google Meet, as you can see on the screen, is a video conferencing tool, very much like FaceTime, Duo, which is also another Google app, Zoom, which is huge right now in the business world, right? Loom is another one. There's a lot of video conferencing tool. There's Marco Polo, right? That's not necessarily a conferencing tool, more of a sharing network one. But all of those things have in common is basically to communicate through video. And the reason that Google Meet is so huge right now, obviously, not for a positive reason, is because schools across the country are closed down. A lot of those schools use the Google Apps Suite, and this is a way for students and parents and teachers and administration and staff to communicate through video conferencing. So before we jump into Google Meet, I want to talk about a few extensions that I feel like you have to make your experience a little bit better. And so as I slide over the screen, it might get a little bit dizzy, but we're going to slide over to another window that I already have open. So the first one, interestingly enough, I already did a video on this down here, is called Google Meet Gridview. What this extension, this Google extension allows you to do is to view all of the people in your meeting in one screen. So the default setting for Google Meet, as you'll see in a few minutes, is either one person or all of the people lined up on the right-hand side, and you have to scroll through, or you can have, like, I think 4 is the max that you can see at one time. Well, if you're a teacher or administrator or somebody that has more than 4 people in a meeting at one time, that doesn't work for you because you can't see what the other kids are doing. You can't see their faces and what's happening. So the easiest way to install that, right, is to go to google.com, type in Gridview Google extension, and I already have it installed, but you're going to click here. Huge shout out, right? 300,000 downloads in the past 3 days, which is amazing, right, for them. Great timing by that team. But you'll just click on install for Chrome, and it will, and I'll just show you. I'm going to remove it now. I'll remove it. It was right here. I'm going to add it back to Chrome, add extension, and there it is right there. So the second extension, Google Meet extension, that I feel like that you need to have, especially if you're using Gridview on Google Meet, is an extension called Nod. And so what Nod does, right, it's right here. I think I've also done a video on that one too. Yep, right down there. Is it allows users to be muted, but also to communicate with whoever's hosting the meeting. And so we've got that installed as well. I'm not going to remove this and then reinstall it, but it allows students or participants to raise their hand, to clap, to do a smiley face or a laughing face, a heart emoji, and ask questions, I think, or raise your hand. So obviously you can see this one just came in a couple days ago as well, and they're updating that. They've already changed it in the first 2 days, where it shows up on the screen, how long those emoji notifications stay for in that Google Meet. So those, again, are the 2 extensions that I highly recommend at this point. I would imagine that the developer world is creating new ones as we go, because as we go longer into this home-based schooling, or student learning or distance learning process, more requests are coming up for these. Okay. All right. So I'm actually going to close this one. I'm going to close this one, and we're going to go back here. So we've already talked about the two extensions that you would want to add. So we'll just go down to that next slide. Obviously, Google Meet and Nod Reactions. Let's talk about some of the settings that you'll have in Google Meet. So the three things that you want to be worried about are your camera, your microphone, and your volume. There's a couple different places that you can change these settings. You can change these settings. You can do it before you join a Google Meet, whether you're the host or you're joining as a guest, or you can do it once you're in the Google Meet. So let's actually look at those. So you'll see here, I'm actually already in the meeting. And so if I hover down my mouse down below here, and I'm going to take this and move that away, over down to the left, there's meeting details. This will tell you all about the meeting. This will give you the link to send out. It'll give you a phone number. It'll give you a pin. If you want to add attachments, we'll talk about that a little bit later when we get into how to invite people. But I can go right here to the three little dots down here in the bottom right-hand corner. When I click on that, I'm going to have settings. And the settings that I'm going to be able to look at in this view are audio and video. So the audio is either going to pull from the default in-computer mic like I'm doing now on my MacBook. If you were to have a third party, whether it's a USB or a 3.5 mic, that would appear there as well. And you could pull that for the sound. For video, most computers that you're going to be using are going to have a built-in camera, right? Mine is the one that's built in right at the top. You can see that as I covered up like that. If you have an external or an outside of the computer camera, it will be mounted on your computer. It might be sitting over on the side. That's probably going to be running to your computer through a USB port or a USB-C port. And then you would just choose which one you wanted here. You can also change to high definition here, which you can see all the stress on my face from all the things that are going on right now. So that's the in-app or the in Google Meet extensions. Now, if I'm outside of the meeting and I haven't joined yet, I'm going to just grab this code and I'm going to invite myself using another Gmail account. I'm going to click continue. Now, what you'll see right here is I am not necessarily in the meeting yet, right? I've been given a code by somebody, but I have my three dots here, and I can go to settings, and you'll see I have audio, video, and then general. General, as at this point, there's no reason to use general. So again, I can change my settings before I jump into the meeting. Now, I'm not going to jump in because we're going to use this in a minute to go through a few more details. So here we are here. We've got those settings now. There's some other settings down here that you want to be aware of. You can turn on your captions. And what that'll do is it'll start taking voice to text, and those will start appearing in the actual conversation with everybody. I'm going to turn those off. I can also present. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. Some of the other settings, and like we talked about, is the grid view and some of those other views. If I want to go full screen, you see I just pulled out my browser. I've got my full screen right there. I want to exit full screen. Let's say I want to change my layout. If I don't have grid view installed, which is right here, I'm kind of stuck with these four layouts. The sidebar layout, which everybody lines up here. There's the spotlight, which puts the spotlight on one person, and I can pin that person to the top. Or I can do, which you already saw, is the tide. And those are just going to be 3 or 4 pictures depending on how many you have. I'll show you what the grid view looks like once I join the meeting with the other account. All right, so moving on. So how to start a Google meeting. My suggestion or my tip for this is that you want to be in the meeting room early. You may have to approve some of the invitees. If they are outside of your organization, Google does not let them automatically join. However, if they're in your organization, they can automatically join and they have access to that meeting even after it's done. And we'll talk about that's my one big concern with Google Meet. And based on their the customers and requests to their department, is that's the number one request, and we'll go into that at the end. So how do I start a Google meeting? So I'm actually going to end this one, or I'm going to leave this meeting. So here, I just click on my name, or I can actually just go here and hang up the meeting, right? So if I just go back here, you'll see that I've left the meeting. Now, so what you'll want to do is you'll want to, and I'm going to refresh and create a new meeting code. It'll work a little bit better. So we just go to meet.google.com. That's one way. So we'll click on enter. Now I'm going to start a meeting and test for YouTube, right? So I'll continue there. I'm going to get a specific code when I join the meeting. What you'll notice again is I have the settings here. I'm going to join now. There's my code right here. So I'm just going to copy that. We can use that later. Turn that off. I'm going to mute myself. And that's how you would join just from using your web browser. Now, if I open another window and I want to go to my apps, right? You can go to apps here, or you can go. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to go up to the 9 bar up here, right? Or the tic-tac-toe. You'll click here. And what you'll see is you'll have Meet right here. When you click on Meet, it's going to ask me if I want to join or start a meeting. Now, I've already created a meeting, so I'm not going to create another one for the purposes of this demo, but you could go in, you put your information, and it will have something there. The nice thing is, if I have something scheduled, which we're going to do right now, that's the third way that you can invite people to a Google Meet is through Google Calendar. So we are going to go here. We are going to go to Calendar, which I already have up here in my favorites, and we're going to create an event. Now we're going to create this event, let's say 9 and 10 o'clock, that's fine. And I'm actually going to add other account there. Let's do that. I'm going to add it to my my calendar as well, and you'll see it'll pop up here. It's right down there. You can see 9 to 10 o'clock. Where it says add rooms, location, or conferencing, this is where you're going to actually add the conferencing. Now, the great thing about this is if I click on add conferencing, it's going to create its own 10 letter ID. So it'll be different than the one that I'm already in. So you need to be aware of that, right? I could actually share it in the description if I wanted to do that. It seems a little bit cumbersome to add it there when you can just click this button here. So if I click on add conference, what it's created right here is you'll see that this link, right? This Google Hangouts link is different than the one that I'm already involved in up here. So we'll just click save. We're going to send that invitation. It'll tell me, hey, these people are outside of your organization. Do you still want to invite them? And at this moment in time, most of your students will probably be in your organization, but your parents, guardians, foster parents, different things like that will not be in the organization unless they work in your district or your school. So you're going to be inviting each external guests quite regularly. So we're going to click on invite external guests, right? Now, we'll close calendar. If I were to go to meet.google.com, what you'll see in my calendar view down here is that I have a Google Meet meeting already scheduled at 9 o'clock in my feed. Now, if I were to add 30 of them, there'd be 30 meetings there. Now, why is this good to know? Well, if you're inviting specific students or groups of small students or parents, you have a name and you can see what time everybody is at in the Google Meeting app, in the Google Meeting calendar right here or schedule that you can set. So if I wanted to join this, I would just click right here. Now, I'm not going to, but I would just click right there. Here's the reason why I'm not going to join it is because we already have this set up through something else with the other meeting. So I'm going to close this. So those are the 3 ways through the computer that you can invite somebody or start a Google Meet. The 4th way that you can start a Google Meet is to text or take a picture of that, send it to somebody, and they can actually just type straight into their phone, meet.google.com/that 10 letter code, and they can join straight from their phone. And they have the same options in audio and video to mute themselves and to do a front-facing camera or a rear-facing camera. So that's what that would look like on the phone. All right. So this meeting is live. I'm the only one in here. So let's talk about what we can do. We can record this meeting and save it for later into Google Drive. I'll show you where it appears in Google Drive in a few minutes. I'm going to click on, right now, I'm going to click on Options, and I'm going to click on Record a Meeting. Now, this is an important key, right? If we go back to the tips and tricks, right, that we talked about earlier, is if you want to record the meeting, it's going to fall right down there. You want to record the meeting at the very beginning. It doesn't do any good to record the meeting at the end of the meeting. And where those show up is in your Drive under Meet Recordings. And so I can show you that right now. And so if I go to drive.google.com, you'll see if I click on my Drive, I have a bunch of different things right here. But right down here in Meet Recordings, you'll see all of my Meet recordings. Now, I'm not going to open it up because I have a ton in there because I've been doing individual conferences with teachers and students, and we've been doing IEPs and different things like that through Google Meet. But this is where they show up. So when you click on that, it'll pull up a bunch of videos, and it'll have names and dates and times and what the meeting code was, and it'll have all of those there. And you can actually grab those and share those back to your students who were unable to attend that presentation. Maybe you're not actually meeting with kids, you're just presenting to them. You can record that presentation, send it back to those kids. We have a teacher in our building right now who's trying to figure out how to do Romeo and Juliet. And so today we spent a couple of hours breaking how we would do this down. And they're going to do a Google Meet Readers Theater where all of the students are sitting at home, having their different parts. They're all going to come in together, read their separate parts. The teacher's going to record that and then share that with other students that couldn't make that meeting. And then they'll go through and ask different questions. It was pretty cool to practice today and try that out. So that's just one idea that you could do for a classroom besides just meeting with them and doing different assignments and stuff like that. There's some activities that you could do with that. So that's where they end up, is right here. Okay. Now, a couple things. If you're going to record, you've got to ask for consent, right? So I'm going to say, yep, I did. I've already got it. You'll notice right up here in the top left-hand corner, right next to my little emoji guys here, that I am now recording. If I go over to the other account that I invited to this meeting, I'm going to have to ask to join. So now I'm going to say, hey guys, I'm ready for this meeting. It's 9 o'clock. I'm going to ask to join. Because I am outside of, and I'm going to mute myself so we don't get an echo. What's going to happen is because I'm hosting the meeting, I now have to admit that person who's outside of our organization. So I'm going to admit Mr. Campbell Rocks. And what you'll see once I admit him is that a second person will show up here, and I'll be able to see another window. So I'll go back here. This call is being recorded. This is something that's just been added recently. Do I want to join? Well, it's being recorded and like all these different yes, I do. I want to join. So I'm going to join. So I click on join, and now I am in this meeting. So if we go back over here, you'll see that there's 2 of us. There's Mr. Campbell Rocks. There's myself. Now, when we talked about Gridview earlier, when I click on Gridview and turn it off, you'll see the 2 different views. Right? So we've got both views. This is really meta and kind of, I wish I had 10 people right now that could jump on a recording with me and we could do it. But we're both in the meeting together. If we were to add a 4th and a 5th and a 6th person, you can look at the other video tutorial, put a link down there. It will show all of those people in this in a very same size, equal sized box. Online, I've seen up to 70. It's saying only 30, but we've seen people with more than 30 in a Google Meet. I mean, obviously, the little squares are going to be very, very, very small, but it is a way that you could get your whole class or a large group or family, a business team, a sales team together to do that. Now, let's say that somebody has gotten the link or somebody's in the meeting that I don't necessarily want in the meeting. I don't know why you would do this, but just if we want to end the recording, we're going to do this now. So we're going to stop the recording right there. And let's say I want to kick myself out, or I want to kick this other person out. Kick out is removed from the meeting is a much more kind way to do this. So we'll click here. When we click on these two people, right down here we have some options. So I can pin Mr. Campbell to the front page. I cannot unmute him, but I can mute him, which is nice, right? Especially with kids, if they're just, talking and blabbering. I'm going to remove him. So remove Mr. Campbell from this call. There we go. So Mr. Campbell's been kicked out. So when we come back over here, hey, someone has removed you from the meeting. Well, I'm like, hey, what's up? Why did you kick me out of the meeting? I want to go back in. Obviously, Google wants to know how they're doing. So I'm going to say, oh, the volume and everything was really good. Here's the invite for the other meeting. If I wanted to go back into the previous meeting, I could because it's already saved in my history. So if I were to go up here and just type the most recent one was F, you'll see there's the link right there. I have to ask to join the meeting because I'm outside of the organization, but I can jump back in that meeting if I do get kicked out. And that's pretty problematic for when Google Meet meetings end. And I'll talk about that when we get to the end of the presentation. All right. So we're done as far as inviting everybody, how to remove a guest, add a guest. Let's talk about what it looks like if we want to present our screen. So if we're in the meeting and I want to present something, maybe there's a website I want to go over. Maybe I have a PDF or a Google Doc or something that I have that I want to show my students that's not external of the computer, but it's something internal on the computer. Let's go. I am going to open up a, let's see, I thought I had something here. So we're going to open, let's just open that. This is the App Store, right? So we've got the App Store opened up. If we go back to our meeting, again, this is the meeting that we're presenting, and I want to present now. What Google has decided, instead of making it a separate screen, it's actually going to add another guest. So what you'll see up here in the top right where we have the two little people is it's now going to be two. Well, it's not actually two people, it's me, right? But it's also what I'm presenting as another screen. And you have two options when you're presenting. You have your entire window, which is basically everything on your screen, your desktop, your buttons, your notifications, everything that flies across, or I can do a window. When I click on a window, it's going to give me, and it's because I'm in maximum mode, it's not going to allow that to me. So if I minimize this a little bit, what you'll see now is I have the option to select another window. So I'm going to click on the App Store, and what happens on my desktop is the App Store comes to the forefront, and I get a little note that slides across that says, hey, you're presenting in, Google Meet. So let's just do, games. So we're here on games, and you can see this, and I don't need to go through. I don't need to download anything, but you can be presenting how to do something to your students in this mode. Now, we've seen a lot of amazing things right now at this moment in time. I'm not very good with a whiteboard, but there's whiteboard apps that you can get on your paper. There's graph paper that you can get. There's a whiteboard that you can put on your screen and be writing on that so students can see you down in the right-hand corner, but can see what you're doing on a whiteboard on the full screen. We've also seen graph paper. So if we're doing math and we're doing graphing, if we're doing any sort of third-party app or third-party program or any sort of outside program that's online, we could do this together. So today, when we were talking about what Romeo and Juliet might look like, we talked about getting the script and presenting that so kids would have that in a Google Doc so they could be reading the script and not have anything else in front of them, and they could see everybody else as they're presenting if they downloaded the Gridview, which I'm excited to see how that works. I'm excited to see how the kids react. I mean, obviously it's not as fun as what it would look like in a reader's theater in a classroom, but we're doing the best to help teachers make it work and be as fun and as engaging as possible. And I know if you're here, you're a teacher and you're doing everything that you can to make things engaging, and I appreciate you for that. So I'm actually going to close this window now. And because I closed that window, it automatically just pulled back into the view that you're seeing now. I can also present, and this is, again, if I present my whole screen, you're going to see myself, and a bunch of windows. So when we put the entire screen, and I click here and click share, it'll just kind of go on forever because it's a screen within a screen within a screen. Hopefully you're not seeing that, but if you are, either way. So I'm going to hide that. We're going to stop doing that. There it is. There's the, I'm going to click on stop presenting. We can get back here and get back to normal. All right. So let's make this full view again. Let me make sure these guys are in order. We're just going to pull this one over here. All right. So moving on here with the presentation. We've just talked about this. You can present. Some things that you need to understand is the entire screen is all of the attendees will be able to see your desktop. So if you have a dirty desktop and or it's not organized, people are going to be able to see all of that. And let's be honest, we're at the point now where people should not be worried about a dirty desktop. They've got dirty houses, dirty rooms, dirty all those things behind them. So a dirty desktop at this point is probably not the worst thing to see. The window version allows your audience just to see one window, so you can still have all these other things going on. It's just one window, right? Okay. Using Gridview, we've already spent a little bit of time. The great thing about Gridview is it's the people asked and developers basically produced it and made it and created it. And as we look at maybe longer periods of time doing school from home or education from home or distance learning or home learning, is my assumption is that more developers will create things to improve and enhance the Google Meet experience for kids. So this is what it looks like right here. I mean, this is just a screenshot of it, and you can see they're all equal and everybody's muted and some people on the top are talking and different things like that. It's also known as the gallery view or the Brady view. You can read the notes there. I don't need to read it to you. I already talked about how to remove people from the call. When you remove people from the call, and I showed you this, they still have access to the link because the link is permanent. So when you remove a person from the call, you're removing them for that moment, but they can invite themselves back in, especially if it's somebody in your organization. They can jump back in at any time with the link. Now, there are some pros to this, right? So you have one meeting code, and you just use that for a regular meeting every week or every other week. So I know, like for me and my family, my family, it's in different parts of the country and the world, to meet, we use the same code every week. We, 8:00 Saturday night, everybody jumps on if you can, and we all sit and talk and chat and stuff like that. And we record those. They go to my Google Drive. And then the next week we all jump back into the same one. It was just easier for my parents who are a little bit older, not to create a new link every time you want to have a meeting. So if you have a meeting that's going to be consistently ongoing, that might be something that you want to do. Now to finish up, the one, there's probably a few negatives, but this is the big one that I could see. Google Meet is the meeting that never ends. And what I mean by that is, if you have a group of students that jump into a meeting with a teacher, an adult, and then they do all their school stuff and they have everything done, and then the teacher jumps out and goes on and meets with another class or goes about their day, his or her day, the kids still have access to that meeting room. And my assumption is that Google's going to fix that, because I feel like that's just a nightmare waiting to happen, where things happen in a Google Meet without an adult. And I don't want to get everybody freaked out, but that could be a major problem, especially when you're dealing with, adolescents, that's just it, period, right? I mean, even adults, right? Just saying that. So let me just take you to show you what that looks like and how many people have asked for this. Hey, we need to have this figured out. So we're going to scroll through. We're going to go from the presentation. We're going to keep going this way. We're going to keep going this way. So this is the G Suite admin help, right? So the complaint is, how does somebody permanently end the meeting and not allow students to re-enter? It's been updated or upvoted 1,400 times. And so I don't want to go in and read through all of the people, right? Google Meet meeting has a 10-digit code, right? You can't customize the code as far as I'm aware. And so once they click on it, it's saved in their search history or their browsing history, and they can get back into that any time. There's not a real solution at this moment. My assumption is, based on all the things, is that Google will recognize, hey, there's a problem here, and they will try and figure it out. And I mean, obviously I'm not a developer. I don't know how that would work. I would imagine if there was a button that you could just kick everybody out and close that URL from opening again, that would solve the problem. So as we finish off, we'll come back over here. I'm gonna close this off, and just again, I want to thank you. I started a YouTube channel 10 years ago, and it was just for my students, and I would do a daily message for my kids, and it was phenomenal, and it was very cheesy. It was just me in front of a camera. If you go look at all the old videos back from 2010, 2011, it's different haircut, a little bit younger, a lot of it younger actually, and about 30 pounds lighter. But we started doing that, and when the pandemic hit, I kind of had this idea, I can do this for our teachers, I can do this for kids, I can do this for teachers everywhere. Now I've got teachers from Australia and Canada and all over the country that are trying to do. Sorry, I'm getting emotional. It's crazy. Teachers are trying to do what's best for their kids, and they're doing anything that they can. And you ask a large group of people that care about kids to jump in and do something, they're trying to figure it out. Anyway, so again, what we've covered today is we covered about what is Google Meet, how to invite people to a Google Meet, how to remove people, how to record the Google Meet, the 2 extensions that you need to make your Google Meet experience more fun for you and for your kids. We've talked about how to share your screen and present things online. And not that I need to get even more emotional, but I would imagine if you're watching this and if you've kind of gone through it this far, is that you're an educator and you really want to do what's best for kids. I've said this before. I have 6 kids in public education. I have 2 in middle school and 4 in elementary school. And to watch and see what not only the teachers in my building, but teachers in other buildings that work with my kids are doing is just phenomenal. I'm proud to call myself an educator and join with you as we go through this kind of horrific time, but we do it together. If you have ideas or need help with tutorials, I'm pretty good about reading the comments. I think that's super important. If this brought value to you or your school, I would love that if you would subscribe and like and share and comment and let us know what you're doing with Google Meet. And again, thank you. I love you. I appreciate you. And I'm glad that you're here.